Welcome to Life, Lessons, and Laughter with your host, Glenn Ambrose.
Hey, welcome to the show, everybody. What's happening? How are you? Talk to me. Don't leave me hanging. So today we're going to talk about soul growth through subtraction. Interesting, huh? So what spawned this was I saw this quote by Henry David Thoreau. It said, "The soul grows by subtraction, not addition." And I was like, yeah, that's concise and beautiful. So I posted it and got a little feedback and was conversating with some people in another group that I have. And, it's just, I think it's a very important dynamic to understand. Because it's counterintuitive to how we normally learn. I mean, normally we try to learn from acquiring knowledge, acquiring something from outside of us and bringing it in. Whereas with the soul growth, it's, sometimes we do learn those from external sources, but that's not what really changes us. Those are just tools that we can learn. And if we use those to subtract things, then our soul grows. So we can gain perspectives, but the perspective isn't the thing that actually changes us. It's implementing the perspective that changes us. So, and this is, this is one of the difficulties of linear thinking and the information age. We have so much information, around us that we have access to, and it's so easy. And I've talked about this in other podcasts. It's like our body gives us positive feedback when we're doing something positive. So when we're feeding ourselves spiritual food through information, as a general rule, that is a good thing. It's expanding our mind, exposing us to different ways of looking at things. So therefore, we receive positive feedback. We feel a little bit better. The problem is people will get addicted to that, and people think that that's it. And then if people aren't where they want to be spiritually, they'll think it's because they haven't learned enough yet. They haven't learned the right knowledge. They must be missing something. And we're so conditioned to doing this. It's because, again, we're linear in our thinking, because that's how earthly things are. So we're linear in our thinking, and we think that, and this is how we've been conditioned to learn, through school. If they expose you to something that you've never been exposed to before, and then they feed it to you over and over until you get it, until you memorize it. And maybe there might be even a certain aspect of understanding it. Some teachers, which I think is more important, and some teachers do that, others don't. But regardless, it's, whether you're just memorizing it or memorizing it and understanding it, it's taking information outside of you and kind of making it part of you in an intellectual way. It's an intellectual exercise. So once you understand it intellectually and or can repeat it intellectually, through memorization, then you get a pat on the back. And if you do it enough, they let you go to the next grade and do it more. So we are conditioned to learn like this for the first 12 years of our lives. or, well, 17, 18, whatever. But right at the beginning of our life, we are taught to learn things this way. So then when we start leaning into spirituality, of course, we're going to do the same thing. Now, in the beginning, yeah, we have to take information in, but taking it in is step one. It's not the end game. So even if you understand it, like it does, like understanding it is better than not understanding it. But that's not the end game either. It's not about taking in information and understanding it. It's about implementing it. It's about using it to do something. So, and then, this is where we lean into even more counterintuitive stuff, because it's like I just said, using it to do something. Well, a lot of times we're actually supposed to be using it to not do things. which brings me right back to the to the subtraction, not addition. Right? So that it's like our soul doesn't grow by adding things in. It can be a step towards our soul growing, but our soul doesn't grow when we memorize or understand things. Our soul grows when we implement them. And that's what changes us. That's how that's when we start interacting with life differently. That's how, that's when we start actually thinking differently, like on a deep level, and therefore interacting differently. So it's, a lot of our internal growth is about forgetting our conditioning, forgetting the idea that things are all linear, forgetting that we were told we're good if we if we can regurgitate what other people say back to us the correct way, or forgetting the idea that we're not good enough if we can't sit still at a desk for 6 hours when we were a kid. That was a big one for me. I mean, I was told that I was a problem my whole life, like just every day for 17 years, After a while, you're like, well, and you see other kids being able to do things that you can't do. Just like for me, it was sit still and pay attention, and and you don't understand why you can't, and then everybody tells you you're bad because you're not doing it, and then you try and you're just incapable of it. So then, but you see other people capable of it, other kids capable of it. So then you're like, well, there's only really one conclusion that you can come to. You are bad. So that's when I broke hard left in junior high. By the time I hit 7th grade, I just couldn't take it anymore. I was just like, okay, you guys got me, you're right. You guys get all the evidence. Every single one of you has been saying it over and over and over and over and over again. And I look around and it seems like a lot of the other kids can do it and I can't. So yeah, there must be something wrong with me. Like I get it. And no matter how hard I try, I can't do it. So like, I'm going to stop trying to be who you want me to be. I'm just gonna, because I can't anyway. And you're frustrated and I'm frustrated and I have no control over whether you're frustrated, but I do have control over whether I'm frustrated. So if I stop trying to fit in, then I'm not going to be frustrated that I can't fit in. So that's what I did. I was just like, I'll just do whatever the hell I want. I'm in trouble all the time anyway. Might as well have some fun, And I did. I had lots of fun. Unfortunately, it was from a foundation of poor self-esteem. So, that's going to crash, right? But we were taught that if we listen to our parents, even if it goes against what our body is telling us to do, what we know to be right and wrong, how to fit in, what we're supposed to like, what we're not supposed to like if we do what we're told, then we are given love and approval. And if we don't, then we're given punishment and disapproval. So, there's some forgetting we got to do, man. Like we have to forget our conditioning, let go of what holds us back, and sometimes some intellectual things are helpful for this, like that might be the other part of this podcast or another podcast, depending on how this goes. But like we can use these tools as we're learning spiritual tools, we can use them to help our soul grow by like letting go of what's holding us back. Like, so in the beginning, when we start on these paths, it's like we have all these thought patterns and conditions that are holding us back. And we'd love to just let them go. Oftentimes people tell us to, which is just about impossible to do. Like really, until you have a deeper spiritual connection, letting go basically is stuffing. That's all it is. Because that's what we're conditioned to do. We're taught to stuff. I guess, well, men and women do it differently. But sometimes we do it the same. But, emotions, it's even more pushed on men to stuff our emotions. Women, it's more important to stuff, say, something like how we feel about ourselves, or our women a lot of times are more taught to stuff more about what they really want, right? That's part of the oppression. So it's like, no, just, be quiet and people please. What you want isn't important, so, but we're all taught to stuff all this stuff. It's just, the culture pushes certain aspects of it a little bit more with men and a little bit other things a little bit more with women. But we've all been taught to stuff. So letting things go is basically stuffing. When is letting things go not stuffing? Well, that's when your process of processing. That doesn't sound right. Your process, but I don't know anything else to say at the moment. So process of processing information, the way you process information, when that changes, then you can actually let things go. Because in the beginning, like basically everything bothers us in the beginning. When we're living non-spiritually, like everything bothers us. Everything that's not in alignment with the way we think the world is supposed to go bothers us. And we take everything personally. We're very victim oriented. And I know people don't like to hear that, but just relax with I'm not a victim. Like just put down your sword. Okay. It's okay. It's just the beginning point. We're like, basically, if you have not done self-work, 95% of the people who haven't done work on themselves are in victim mode as a general way of interacting with reality. And it's not that, oh, you're a victim. It's not that. It's a whole way of looking at the world. Like it's how we're taught to look at the world. We're not taught to control what we're in control of, which is ourselves and how we perceive things and our ways of processing information and stuff. We're not taught about that. We're just taught that life is happening, and a lot of times it sucks. And this is one of the reasons why I don't like people like complaining about adulting all the time, because it's like such a horrible message to your children. That like basically, you're a kid for a short period of time and you're an adult for a very long period of the time. And basically what you're saying, what we're implying to our children when we complain about adulting is that like you're screwed basically for the rest of your life. Like, you're going to be an adult around 18 or early 20s or something. And then for the rest of your life sucks because it's about adulting. So that's a version of victim mentality. It's socially acceptable. Everybody runs around saying it. Everybody running around saying that they're stressed and they're busy. Like, they don't have the ability to process information and circumstances in a way where they don't get stressed or their stress is minimized. No, people perceive stress as an external force being pushed upon them that they can't do anything about. That's a victim mentality. So this is what I mean. It's inundated in our society. Like, oh, it's so busy, so busy. Like, you made your life that busy. You don't have to be that busy. Oh, well, I got bills to pay. That's an excuse. Like, there's lots of ways to pay your bills. Now, I'm not saying that we can all skip through the daisies for our entire life and we're never going to be busy. That's not what I'm saying. Like, especially in the developed countries, life goes very fast, and there are going to be times that we're going to be busy. I did a lot of work trying to stay out of victim mentality, stay in control, take downtime, take care of myself, rest. But, when I was a single parent and I was starting my business, I was busy, and it was difficult sometimes. So I'm not saying that we're going to do it perfectly. And there's, that's the egos painting a picture to try to prove that we're not in control. So I mean, there will be times in our lives that are busy, and some of it is within our control. Well, all of it's technically within our control, but we have to make choices what we want. Like, I could have been less busy and not started a business, right? Like, that's my choice. So see, that's the difference. That's what we have control over. Like, I knew that I was choosing to be busy. I knew that I was a single parent responsible for everything going on in my son's life and had basically no help. I understood that. So when I took on coaching his soccer teams, I knew that I was going to be busier, but I made that choice consciously because I wanted to do that. I wanted to be there at all his soccer games and all his practices and be involved. I wanted that. So the trade-off, it was worth it. So therefore, I didn't feel like a victim of it. I wanted to start my own business, so I consciously choose that. So I wasn't running around going, oh my God, I'm so busy. Life sucks. It's not my fault. Oh my God. No, I went like, yeah, my life's extremely busy. I chose it to be like this. If my goal was to not be busy, then I wouldn't have put all these things on my plate. Right? So that's just an example of how we're coming out of, as we lean into spirituality and taking responsibility for our lives, we start leaving that victim mentality behind and we start interacting with life a different way. So when I know that stress is just something that I'm inducing upon myself mentally, then I can adjust that, right? And I can make sure that my mental perspective is looking at this appropriately. And then, yeah, so okay, it is. Then when I feel the stress and I want to go, oh my God, this is so unfair, I don't allow myself to do that because I'm like, oh no, wait, Glenn, you consciously chose this. It's not happening to you. You're not a victim of it. It's not some external force pushing stress on you. You chose to put these things on your plate. And yes, you're busy because of it. So just accept the reality that you're busy and do what you can and don't put the external pressure on yourself to be perfect at everything. You know, there was times in my life around that period where I stopped working out. There was times where I stopped I stopped trying to cook home cooked meals all the time because I was just like, I can't do everything. You know, there was just certain things that I had to decide had to go by the wayside because I wasn't going to be perfect and I couldn't do everything. So I did. And I'm sure some people might choose the same things I did. Some people might choose differently. We're all different, right? So my point is as we evolve spiritually, like in the beginning, these are all tools. We learn all these tools, how to look at things differently so we're not victims and take responsibility for our lives. And then once we learn all that stuff and we're like, oh, okay, we're kind of getting a new feel at how we're interacting with life, and it starts becoming more manageable. We're like, okay, yeah, I got this. And then we start seeing like that we're not victims, right? And that this pressure that we're putting on ourselves, we're just doing it and we don't have to. So then we can not put that pressure on ourselves, or at least minimize it. Oh yeah, okay. So now we're interacting with life differently, and we have different outlooks because we implemented them, not because we understood them, because we put them in real life situations. This is why, like, when I talk about spirituality, to me, it's life. Like this is, in recovery, they say we are maladjusted to life. I believe everybody is maladjusted to life. We learn it through our social conditioning. We just don't look at life in a way that can induce peace, contentment, and happiness within ourselves. This is why we have arguably a 75% unhappiness rate on the planet. Like, what? That's ridiculous. Well, it's because the majority of people, which represent the majority of social conditioning, which represent the majority of what is socially acceptable, are maladjusted to life. They don't navigate life in a way that induces contentment, peace, and happiness. Therefore, they are unhappy. Right? You just follow the line of logic. So it's like, okay, well, then it would make sense that I don't want to do what most of the people are doing. So when I see myself falling in line with society, it's full circle. Like when I was a child, I used to want to fit into society. I just wanted to be like everybody else because I wanted to be accepted. And I tried so hard to be something that I wasn't, and then now, like, and it was so frustrating because I couldn't, that I blew a gasket and turned into a troublemaker, So, and then now full circle, I'm right back to where I started. I don't want to fit into society now, though. I still don't, just like I didn't when I was a kid, but now I understand why I don't. And I'm happy that I don't, because you guys ain't got it figured out. Like, you guys are mostly unhappy. Why the hell do I want to be part of a group that is mostly unhappy? Right? So now I'm happy I don't fit in. And if I see myself starting to fit in, that's a red flag that I go, whoa, wait a minute. Is this some old conditioning that I haven't removed yet? I haven't forgotten about yet? And sometimes it is. I'm like, whoa, that was close. Thank God. But once we get out of that victim mentality and we understand that we are responsible for our lives and we are more in control of how we adjust our sails and how we navigate life and how we interact with life in a healthy way, then all of a sudden we start getting the keys to the kingdom. We start getting like, oh, okay, all right, I got this. And we start understanding that not everything is, we don't have to try to control everything. Like everything isn't so important, right? So once we start understanding that not everything is so important, then we can start subtracting. We can start letting go. Before we needed to control everything. Now we're like, we're starting to see like a lot of the stuff that we used to get all upset and freaked out over really isn't even that important. We're like, oh, all right. So we drop into this place of peace, right? And when not all the time, but when we're walking around experiencing a certain level of inner peace on a regular basis, it's because there's space in between us and so-called reality, transitory reality, because that's what's happening on the earth. It's always changing. It's transitory. Nothing ever stays the same. So it's a transitory reality that's happening here on earth. And we can use these tools that we learn in the beginning, if we implement them and learn to look at life a little bit differently, to create space between us and what's happening. I usually explain this like a movie screen. It's like, there's a little space of consciousness in between us and the movie screen. So we can watch a movie, we can get caught up in the emotion of it and cry and laugh and get scared and action, having our heart jump and all that stuff. But we don't dive under the seat when somebody pulls out a gun, because there's that conscious space in between us and what's happening on the screen, where we're like, yes, I'll allow myself to get emotionally invested in this to some degree as an escape, but it's not actually happening. I'm still safe. So when we drop into that, that's where we land, in that seat of safety, and we have that space in between us and what's happening. Then we can consciously choose what we're going to act, instead of unconsciously reacting to situations constantly, which is how most people go. It's like, something happens and there's a reaction. You're a jerk. No, I'm not. Like, that's an unconscious reaction. And I'm not saying that if you thought about it, you wouldn't say the same thing. Maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't. But there's not enough space for you to know. It's an unconscious reaction. If somebody, like, let's just say somebody that's a little bit more conscious, and somebody goes, you're a jerk, they might choose to take into consideration the source of who just said it, and possibly the energy they're in. Are they upset? So somebody says you're a jerk, they might go, this can happen in a millisecond in your head. That person might be able to go, well, they're obviously upset. They probably don't mean it. I'm not going to take it personally. Sorry you feel that way. And then they might say, sorry you feel that way, and walk away. Like they can consciously choose how they're going to act in a situation. So this is what happens when we can consciously choose how to interact with life instead of unconsciously reacting to it. So this is another gift that space creates. It's consciousness. It's the ability to choose. So then we can choose what we're going to take seriously and what we're not going to take seriously. This is one of the things that benefits us with letting things go. So then all of a sudden, something can happen, maybe even very similar to the example that I just used. We go, somebody says, you're a jerk. And you go, yeah, they're just upset. I'm going to give them some time to cool down. Sorry you feel that way, and walk away. And then now they're not walking because of the way they consciously chose how to process that. They're not feeling like somebody's victim. Whereas the person who reacted unconsciously, you're a jerk. No, I'm not. Screw you. Now they walk, like, most likely it probably gets inflamed and even worse things are said. And then they walk away, and they walk away usually with a resentment. Now, why? Because they're taking it personally. So it's a resentment, the way they processed it. They're a victim of that person. That person said they were a jerk, and that's unfair, and they shouldn't have said it, and blah, 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 blah. So now they've got all that energy that's created as a result of processing the interaction that way. And then somebody goes, oh, they're not important, just let it go. And they go, yeah, you're right, I'll just let it go. And you can't let that go. It was processed in the form of a resentment. You can't let resentments go. Where do you think they're going? Like, you have a resentment inside of you. Resentments don't magically go away. Like, you ask anybody. There's people pissed off at people that hurt them in second grade. So like resentments don't magically go away. That's stuffing. Okay. So do you see how when you react unconsciously and you take things personally, so you're processing life in a way, interacting with life in a way that causes resentments. This is what the tools are for, to change the way you're processing that information so it doesn't create the resentment in the first place. Once you've created the resentment, you're going to have to deal with that. You're going to have to reprocess the information. You're going to have to see it in another way. You're going to have to be like, and actually believe it. You can't lie to yourself. But, because if you go, oh, well, yeah, I guess I shouldn't take it personally. Yeah, you're right. And then you walk away. 10 years later, you're still going to have that resentment because intellectual understanding doesn't do a damn thing. You have to implement that intellectual understanding. So knowing that you shouldn't take things personally and not taking things personally is two different things. You actually have to implement not taking things personally. You actually have to process information in a way that you don't take things personally. Therefore, it doesn't create the resentment. Therefore, you're not walking around with the resentment. So if I don't have a resentment already, and all it is just some factual interaction that I'm not feeling a victim of, it's just somebody called me a jerk, but I already know that it was stuff they're going through and it had nothing to do with what I was going through, and I processed it that way. Then I could go, let's say I'm talking about it with somebody. They go, oh yeah, I heard they called you a jerk. You go, yeah, but I didn't take it personally. I'm just letting that go. And you actually can let it go. You can let it go. Why? Because it's not generating resentment energy. That's what we carry around with us, the resentment energy. So if it's not creating resentment energy, well, sure, then you can let things go. It's like happy stuff. You can let happy stuff go. Why? Because it's not creating negative energy within you that you're stuffing and pretending isn't happening. Happy emotions, we often don't stuff. We allow ourselves to feel them. And that's energy's job, to be felt. That's our emotions' job, to be felt. Happiness is there to be felt. And usually we allow it. Negative emotions are there to be felt. Usually we don't allow it. So, but they work the same way. It's like if you have a positive experience with somebody and you meet this new person and they're like, oh man, I heard about you. You are amazing. Like your friend so-and-so told me about you and told me about that time that you helped this person. And I really was looking forward to meeting you. You're one of the good eggs, kudos to you on that. That was really a nice thing that you did. I really like that. And you're like, oh, wow, thank you. Very nice of you to say. And then you guys part ways. Now, how do you think you're going to feel the next time you see that person? The same way, right? Not as strong because maybe you're not having a conversation with them, but you could see them drive by in a car and you're like, oh, that's that person. And you'll like feel good. Why? Because it was a good feeling interaction. Now, we don't have to do anything with that. Like that's not harming us. It's actually enjoyable, right? But the opposite is true. So if we have a negative experience with somebody and it generates negative emotion within us, if we don't shift the way that we're processing that, then all of a sudden you see that person drive by and you're like, oh, that was the person that called me a jerk. And we feel it again. Resentment comes from I forgot where I heard this. I haven't thought of this in a long time. Resent comes from the root sentire, and it means again, right? So is again, and then sent comes from sentire, which means to feel. So resentment literally means to refeel or to feel again. We can't just let that go until we get rid of the cause. The cause is the way we're processing the information. Okay. Okay, so let me just double check this thing, make sure I'm not going too far. Yeah, well, I just said releasing resentments um, through deeper understandings and empowering perspectives. These are the things that reconnect us with our soul. So, so yeah, this is our once we start understanding this and interacting with life in different ways, then we can just let it go. Oh, it's not that important. I'll just let it go. But we have to learn the tools, okay? Implement those tools into our everyday life, into actual circumstances in which we're living, to shift the way that we are interacting with the world, going from maladjusted to life to well adjusted to life. So we're processing life in a way where we are not a victim, where we are in control of our own inner space and how things work, and probably not perfectly. I still get upset sometimes. People are so amazed when somebody spiritual gets upset, like like we're not human anymore, and like nothing's supposed to upset us, and if we get upset, that means we're not spiritual. Yeah, I don't it's honestly a little bit sad that people see it that way, but whatever, it is what it is. Of course we want to minimize it. That's what peace is, but we're still human. Like I was talking with this person that was a reporter many years ago, and they said one of their favorite memories was that they were able to see the Dalai Lama. I believe it was in Providence, Rhode Island. And their favorite part was that the Dalai Lama got upset while he was on stage doing something. I forgot if somebody asked him a question or whatever, but he got upset. And it was one of this person's favorite memories because they were like, oh my God, like that. It was so cool seeing the Dalai Lama get upset because it showed his humanity, and it's like, see, if we don't fully understand something, unconsciously, we kind of create an understanding of it. And this is one of the most the biggest misconceptions, in my opinion, is what being spiritual looks like. We look at like Eckhart Tolle, just, Tolle is very monotone and very, not overly animated. But one of my favorite parts is when he does get animated. I love that because his humanity to me comes out, but he's just got a different personality than me. When I first started out, I wanted to be like him, like I was like, oh, I thought that's what spirituality looked like. You're just peaceful all the time. And yeah, man, it's all cool, and like, I'm like, that's not me. That's not my personality. That's not who I am. I'm never going to be that guy, So I stopped trying, fortunately. But, yeah, I forgot where I was going. It's really about, I'm going to try to get back there. Implementing this stuff into our daily lives so we interact with life in a healthier way, and we can let go of things that no longer serve us. So yeah, that's another actually important part. Understanding that like the way we are served us in some way. Like for me, it was to fight. You generally it's fight, flight, or freeze. So those are our go-tos. And fight it's not a good one, man. It's not a good one because I mean, none of them are good all the time. This is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be able to fight. We're supposed to be able to flee, and we're supposed to be able to freeze. And if we learn how to use those three in different situations, that's kind of a well-balanced defensive arsenal, if you will. Fight is a tough one because it's more external than the other two. So when people don't like, we choose these when we're children, and people who freeze and flee, they can see how freezing all the time or fleeing all the time causes problems in their life, because not one of them works in every situation. So if you freeze all the time and you flee all the time, it's going to cause problems in your life. So you need to work on that. If you fight all the time, it's obviously, it causes more obvious problems because it's more external. So it affects other people, right? And it's easier to see. So it's hard, but I've gotten to a point where I don't judge myself for that so much. It's, the way I explain it, it's like, okay, you try to never ever freeze again when you feel uncomfortable. You try to never ever flee again when you feel uncomfortable. Would that be possible? No. Nobody that, maybe after years and years and years of work. But my point is most people, whatever your go-to is, you're going to go to your go-to unconsciously, whether you want to or not, because it's your go-to. And fighting is like that. So, and I don't mean physical fighting. I just mean arguing or getting emotional. That's a version of fighting. So, but we have to minimize these as much as possible and learn to interact with life. And we can let these things go. But we have to, that's what I'm saying. We have to understand that these things served us at one point. That I didn't start fighting because I was bored on a Tuesday. I started fighting because out of necessity. I was walking around scared all the time. I was starting to have panic attacks. I was breaking down, curling up in a ball, crying in my room, and just on a daily basis because I couldn't handle the fear. Every time I left the house, it was fear. Going to school, getting ready for school, fear. Going to school, fear. Coming home from school, fear. Walking to the neighborhood store to get a piece of candy, fear, or play video games, fear. I was in a perpetual state of fear, and I went to the adults and asked them how to handle it, and nobody could give me an answer. And they tried telling me some nice things. I tried implementing them. They never worked. And then, at some point they said, punch the biggest one in the head. And after I got so sick of living in fear that I went, I guess I'm going to try that, So I did, and it worked. No, it's not the proper solution. I understand that now, but back then as a kid, it was the only thing that worked. So I did it again and again. And guess what? I wasn't walking around that fear anymore. So it served me. I'm not saying it was the right thing to do. I'm saying that in the particular situation that I was in, after trying everything else, I was a good kid. I was a nice kid. I didn't want to hit people. I hated fighting. My whole life, I hated fighting, and I got in tons of fights, and I hated it. I always hated fighting. People thought I liked it because I did it so often. I didn't. I did it because I used to kind of see where things were going, and I was like, this is, they crossed the line. So this is going to end up in a fight because I'm not going to let them treat me like that, and they're not going to walk away. I can tell. So we might as well just get this over with. Because I'm not looking over my shoulder for the next 3 months waiting for it to happen. So but it served me. The problem was me walking in perpetual fear on a daily basis, and it solved that problem. So it worked. So, so I look back, and again, I'm not saying that fighting is the right thing to do. It's not. My son's never been in a fight in his life, thank God. So it's not like I teach this. I don't think it's the right thing. But at that time, with me doing my best, that was the only thing I could find that worked. So it worked. So I'm not upset. I don't think I'm a bad person for it. It served me. It just no longer serves me now. And I haven't been in a physical fight in over 20 years. Ever since I woke up spiritually, not one fight. Wow. Amazing. Now I've gotten pissed. I've argued, and I've done that less and less and less and less and less and less and less over the last 20 years too. And I've implemented strategies of freezing. I've implemented strategies of walking away, getting myself out of situations. Am I still balanced? Or am I balanced yet? I mean, no, probably not. Or maybe I am balanced. Maybe I'm balanced. This is actually an interesting question. I like viewing things like this and learning more about myself. I think I am close to balance between when I freeze, when I flee, and when I fight. I think maybe the work that I still have to do is that when I do end up getting triggered and going into the fight, the emotion still can get carried away. I can still get carried away with the emotion. So I have to reel in I'm a very emotional person in all ways. You can tell just by the way I'm freaking talking now. So I think I need to, that's part of my work that I'm doing, which I knew that was part of my work. I didn't put it in the same way. I didn't look at it from this particular angle. So, yeah, so there's little work I can do, but back to my point again is that it served me, all our defense mechanisms served us. So we can acknowledge that. And that actually helps us let them go because, when we think we're bad and something's bad within us, that's shadow work. Right. And shadow isn't necessarily a negative aspect of ourselves. It's just something that we don't accept about ourselves. So if I accept the fact that my go-to became fighting, and it helps me accept that fact if I see that it was out of necessity and it served me, and I'm like, oh, okay, I understand it. When you have understanding, you can have compassion, including for yourself. So I'm like, oh, okay, I understand how it served me. And so therefore I have compassion for myself and understand why it's part of me. And I accept that it's part of me. Okay, cool. So then I can let it go. But I can't let go of something I'm resisting. The more we resist, the more it persists. So once we can drop into a place of acceptance, use these tools to get there, and then we can let things go. There. Well, I'm just going to look at this quote one more time to see if anything else pops up, but I think that's about it. Yeah, I think I'll just end with reading the post and then what I wrote again. I know I think I did this in the beginning, but I just want to end it kind of like a recap. So the post is "The Soul Grows by Subtraction, Not Addition" by Henry David Thoreau. And then what I wrote was, internal growth is about forgetting our conditioning, letting go of what holds us back, and releasing resentments through deeper understandings and empowering perspectives. These are the things that reconnect us with our soul. And that's, I love the non-action aspects of it, It's like these are spiritual terms because they all imply non-action. Forget. Go in the corner and forget real hard. Let go. Try letting go harder. Release. Really hard. Like you can't effort these things. It's about opening and allowing, right? And these are the things that reconnect us with our soul. We can't go grab our soul and then and pull it over to us and connect to it. What we do is we allow the blocks that are in between us and our soul to drift away. And it automatically reconnects with us. We don't have to force anything. So it's not about efforting and force. It's about love and letting go and allowing. You know, that's the subtraction. Subtract the things that are in your way. Let go of the things that are in your way, and you'll land. And then what's meant for you just comes. It's a beautiful thing. All right, peeps. I'm going to end there. Thanks for listening, watching, paying attention, all that stuff. Blessings and best wishes to you. Peace.